okay with, I don't know. But when you undermine that kind of trust in our government, in our democracy, that is when you have lawlessness. And look, this isn't the first time. January 6th happened. I was in that gallery when January 6th happened. I couldn't walk, I had a cane, I just had a knee surgery, and I was one of the last people to be let out of the gallery. And to tell me that that didn't happen, that that was not a violent insurrection incited by the President of the United States, confirmed by a special counsel that he was absolutely trying to steal that election, is not just a disservice, that's too mild of a word. It is fundamentally undermining people's faith in government. Because when I see these articles that say ICE agent was not in
the debate on Capitol Hill erupted into one of the most emotionally charged moments Congress has seen in recent months, as Representative Pramila Jayapal delivered a blistering condemnation of the Trump administration, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and ICE leadership over the killing of Renee Good in Minnesota. What began as a discussion about a criminal justice bill quickly transformed into a broader reckoning over government accountability, truth, and public trust. Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. These conversations matter, and staying informed has never been more important.
I believe it's the gentlelady from Washington and then the gentlelady from California. Gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this bill, but I want to go back to what happened in Minnesota, because I just think that this is so critical on so many different levels. There's new information coming out every minute. I'm tracking this very closely. I want to enter into the record an article from the Washington Post entitled, "ICE Agent Was Not in Vehicle's Path When He Fired at Driver." I also want to enter into the record an article from the New York Times that is titled, "Minnesota Officials Say They're Being Blocked from Investigating Fatal ICE Shooting."
Without objection.
And the reason I think this is very important is because we have video footage that is being shown across this country about what happened in Minnesota when Ms. Good was shot 3 times by an ICE agent as her car was being turned to move away. And we also have immediately, not days later, immediately, the Secretary of Homeland Security, who has billions of dollars at her disposal, taxpayer dollars, who has been using ICE agents to kidnap and disappear people across our cities, including US citizens, by the way, mass detention policies that have been ruled illegal by numerous judges across the country with no due process, which is what this committee is supposed to ensure that we have. And that Secretary of Homeland Security, combined with the President of the United States, within hours put out statements that were absolutely lies. And that's coming out now with all this video footage. And what happens, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, what happens is we live in 2 realities. We here in Congress are living in 2 realities, where we have one reality of what's happening to the American people. Healthcare is being stolen. We're invading Venezuela without authorization from Congress. Congratulations to the Republicans in the Senate who voted for the War Powers Resolution, where it passed in the Senate on Venezuela. We are seeing a reality on television of an American citizen who was sitting in her car be violently approached by an ICE agent and then turning her car away and being shot 3 times. Not once, not twice, 3 times. When you have the President and the Secretary of Homeland Security now give an alternate reality to what happened, what you do is you undermine any trust that may have existed in the United States government. Because that's who's saying these lies. And when you undermine the trust, and maybe this is the proposition that my colleagues across the aisle are okay with, I don't know. But when you undermine that kind of trust in our government, in our democracy, that is when you have lawlessness. And look, this isn't the first time. January 6th happened. I was in that gallery when January 6th happened. I couldn't walk, I had a cane, I just had a knee surgery, and I was one of the last people to be let out of the gallery. And to tell me that that didn't happen, that that was not a violent insurrection incited by the President of the United States, confirmed by a special counsel that he was absolutely trying to steal that election, is not just a disservice. That's too mild of a word. It is fundamentally undermining people's faith in government. Because when I see these articles that say ICE agent was not in the vehicle's path when he fired at the driver, and that is directly contradictory to what the President of the United States has said, how can we accept anything from this government, from this administration? He wants to set up an offshore account for Venezuelan oil that we sell, and I don't know, is he going to control that account? I have no idea. But I am deeply disturbed about this killing, about the lack of accountability from this committee, about the fact that members on the other side are defending this killing. And I think we have to think about the consequences to our democracy and to our judiciary system and to the trust in government. I yield back.
I think I have.
Jayapal did not mince words. She framed the killing of Renee Good not as an isolated tragedy, but as a flashpoint exposing deeper failures in federal law enforcement oversight. According to newly released reporting from both The Washington Post and The New York Times, video evidence appears to contradict early claims from federal officials. ICE initially suggested that the agent fired in self-defense, alleging the vehicle posed an imminent threat, but emerging footage and reporting indicate the agent was not in the vehicle's path when shots were fired, and that the car was moving away at the time. That discrepancy is at the heart of Jayapal's outrage. She pointed to the speed with which the President and the Secretary of Homeland Security issued public statements she said were demonstrably false based on the evidence now coming to light. Jayapal argued that when the highest levels of government present a version of events that conflicts with verified facts, it fractures public trust in a way that is extremely difficult to repair. If you are finding this breakdown helpful, be sure to subscribe so you do not miss future updates and deeper explanations like this one. Jayapal went further, placing the incident within a larger pattern of what she described as an erosion of due process. She accused the Department of Homeland Security of deploying ICE agents in ways that resemble mass detention operations, sometimes sweeping up even U.S. citizens and doing so without proper judicial oversight. Multiple courts, she noted, have already ruled aspects of these practices unlawful, yet enforcement has continued. The Renee Good case, she argued, shows the human cost of that approach. A woman sitting in her car, legally present in the United States, was confronted by federal agents and shot 3 times as she attempted to leave the scene. Jayapal emphasized that this was not a warning shot, not a single misfire, but repeated use of lethal force against someone who was retreating. Subscribe now if you want continued, fact-based coverage that cuts through political spin and focuses on accountability. Jayapal also connected the controversy to a broader crisis of truth in American governance. She described Congress as operating in 2 competing realities, one defined by documented evidence, court rulings, and investigative journalism, and another shaped by political political narratives pushed from the executive branch. She invoked January 6th as a parallel example, reminding lawmakers that attempts to rewrite or deny what happened that day have already damaged faith in democratic institutions. Jayapal spoke personally about being present during the attack on the Capitol, still recovering from knee surgery, struggling to evacuate as chaos unfolded. For her, denial of verifiable events is not a political disagreement. It is a direct threat to democracy. Another critical point Jayapal raised was accountability. Minnesota officials, according to reporting, have said they are being blocked from fully investigating the shooting. That obstruction, she argued, undermines the rule of law itself. Oversight committees exist precisely to prevent federal agencies from policing themselves behind closed doors, and she criticized members of Congress who she said were rushing to defend the shooting rather than demand transparency. Jayapal warned that when leaders excuse or misrepresent the use of lethal force, it sends a dangerous message. If the public cannot rely on the government to tell the truth about life and death decisions, trust collapses and lawlessness fills the vacuum. In her view, that breakdown is not accidental, but a direct result of leadership choices. Before we continue, remember to subscribe so you can stay engaged with in-depth reporting and analysis that helps make sense of moments like this. Ultimately, Jayapal's remarks were not just about Renee Good, but about what kind of country the United States chooses to be. A nation where facts matter, where federal agents are held to account, and where oversight is real, or one where power shields itself behind misinformation and silence. The questions raised in this hearing are unlikely to fade anytime soon, especially as more evidence emerges and investigations continue.